It looks like the Kingsland fight on my restart account might actually be wrapping up in our favor. And off the back of the testing I've done with Garrison commanders and the experience I've had with them so far in KVK, I want to give you a ranking of how each garrison does against a rally and versus a swarm. So stick around in this video for not only a quick update about how this KVK is going, but also my review of the very best garrisons in Rise of Kingdoms versus a rally or a swarm. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And what you're looking at here is the Kingsland for my restart account. We were in the group of the bottom kingdoms versus the top kingdoms, and it looks like we're on our way to getting a win here, which was not easy. I think this is one of the longest Kingsland fights we've had in my restart kingdom. It's probably going to be a full 3 days, maybe a little longer before like this zone is fully locked up for one team or another. But let's refocus on what we're here to do in this video, which is to talk about what the best garrisons are, at least that I've been seeing, versus both rallies and versus swarms. And by the way, if you are interested in my conclusions about open field fighting, by the way, consider subscribing to the channel. I've got some, I think, big insights I'm going to share in a video really soon, talking about how I think Trajan is actually just still doing really well, much to my surprise. I actually bought into the hype of other people saying Trajan sucks, and I was like, does he though? And I did better with Trajan in the lineup than with 5 DPS. But I'm going to cover that in a different video. Let's jump right into the tier list where I'm going to rank these garrisons. You know your boy Chisgule likes to smash everything into a tier list. And in this case, I thought a spreadsheet would be the best way to represent some of the best garrison combos versus rallies and versus swarms. And like, obviously, you could make this a good bit more detailed by talking about what the rally is and then how the garrison performs against that rally. But I wanted to give like overall ratings. How does this garrison do versus a rally? How does this garrison do versus a swarm? And I think these are my conclusions, but this still is a draft. I want to take more time chilling with the folks from 2605, 2293, which is my main account and restart kingdoms, and talk more about, especially the bottom end of this list, like the Jan Ziska garrisons and some of these other combos that we saw less frequently, where they really rank. And there's a couple things I want to say here. First of all, the highest ranking is S, then A, B, and C. And I tried to tier it out slightly by saying, hey, S plus is, better for that tier. Minus is worse for that tier. And I would say this is not perfect. Like, this is definitely a draft. I'm going to need to make some changes to this. So let's get going. Versus a rally. I think your best option is actually the Gorgo Constantine. And there's something you need to know about this combo. I made a full video about it, but the thing that makes it really shine is the lucky coin, which weirdly enough doesn't trigger all that frequently. It really only pops off if you're getting swarmed. But what I think we've been observing is that Constantine as a skill, his fourth skill, when you get below 50%, you mitigate skill damage by 40% when you have a shield active. Now, your shield is apparently staying active for the full duration of the shield, but even though the damage mitigation of the shield is gone, I think you're still getting like 3 seconds of mitigation where you get 40% less skill damage taken. So I still need to go into the logs and kind of confirm that with my own eyes, but that's what a bunch of people have been saying. And it stands to reason that that's why Gorgo Constantine is in part doing so well. It actually does really well versus a rally. I think that's your best bet. But your next best bets were pretty close to that, and that's Xeno Gorgo and Gorgo Hera. Now, the funny thing is that despite Xeno Gorgo, I would say probably being preferable in terms of how I think the result would go, there's a sort of reality about KVK, which is that people start to get low on troops. So picking a garrison where people can like put whatever they want into it is a big deal. And with a Gorgo Hera, mixed troops is fine. Would I say that full infantry is probably better? I think so. But the mixed troops are actually fine. And Gorgo Hera did better in real KVK situations than I would have expected, compared to the testing we did with it, because I think the value of being able to just smash whatever troop you've got into there is big. From there, we've got Daido Hera and Daido Zhuge Liang, which both did great against rallies. They're not as good, I think, as the infantry combos, but they actually did fine. And then we drop down to combos that are really, I think, still fine, but not amazing at this point. You've got Charles and Gorgo, which we'll talk about just in a second here when I rank this thing by, swarm capability, right? How well does the Garrison handle the swarm? But Charles and Gorgo does okay against a rally, but it's obviously designed to handle a swarm. And then you've got Gorgo and Flavius, and, at this point, we just reach a bunch of combos that, these are suboptimal combos. YSS combos are suboptimal. Jadwiga is suboptimal. I think Jan Ziska, however, probably should get ranked a little higher. Maybe this Jan Ziska Hera combo should be an A+. We use this, and it did actually pretty good. So that's one thing I'll note already that I might want to change about this. But, for the most part, we garrisoned with infantry. And also we did a non-trivial amount of rallies with infantry. But, look, when you look at this list, you say, wait a minute, cavalry are not a great garrison right now. And I would say, yeah, cavalry is a great rally right now. We just got Justinian recently, and he's doing really amazing as a rally. So calves are a rally right now. That's the way you should kill your calves. Archers are probably for rallying mostly, but you can garrison them and they do great. And infantry, just in my opinion, they are best served in the garrison right now. And it makes sense. Gorgo just came into the game, right? So now we can talk about swarms. And when we talk about anti-swarm, funny thing happens. Now the Charles Gorgo goes all the way up to the top of the list here. But the thing about a Charles Gorgo versus a swarm is you actually have to keep that garrison full. If you're like, oh no, we're getting swarmed and the garrison's low, yeah, you can put Charles in there, but you're not gonna crush the swarmers in a truly terrifying way, like you would if you can keep that garrison full. And if they put a Charles Gorgo in there, you should stop swarming it. If they put the Charles Gorgo in there and they're keeping it full, you probably need to stop swarming. You're going to be taking 7 to 9K counters, I think. You are going to get absolutely decimated. So that's why that's at the top of the list. It was actually 1034, that's 1V, who figured out the Charles Martel tech when they were handling or garrisoning against 1960, who ultimately won the 3v5 Imperium KVK. But in fact, as I look at this now, I actually think Gorgo needs to be the primary. I told you this was a draft. I think you need to make Gorgo the primary for the rage reduction on the active. Our enemies used Charles Gorgo, I believe, but you actually want the Gorgo to be the primary for the rage reduction here. I think that would get a better result. But the Charles primary also just shredded. I'm telling you, this garrison, either way you run it, is going to wreck swarmers. But I think the Gorgo primary is going to trick people also into thinking that, they're just up against a regular Gorgo garrison and they can swarm it. Then the Charles behind it is insane. Yeah, I think you need to use the Gorgo as the primary here. So I'm going to have to update this list. But let's keep going here. So from here, we've got Xeno Gorgo and Gorgo Hera. And the Gorgo Hera does well because it's easier to fill than the Xeno Gorgo. It's actually that simple, weirdly enough. I think the Xeno Gorgo might technically be better, but the thing is, that's full infantry. And what I have found, KVK after KVK, is that the ability to let people dump whatever troop they have into a garrison is actually undervalued. I think it's really important. So the Gorgo Hera honestly exceeded my expectations for actual KVK performance compared to testing. The Gorgo Constantine I rated as not as good against a swarm, although I really feel like if you equip that coin, that thing is going to pop off. And then you've got Daido Hera and Xeno Hera as options that are anti-swarm. And, look, funny enough, we used Xeno Hera, I don't know, this was over a year ago when I was in Orleans KVK with auxiliary skills as the only viable garrison that could mitigate a swarm enough to pretend that you could fill the garrison. So what I'm trying to say is that the Xeno Hera is, I think, not as great against a rally, but it does actually work against a swarm in a sort of surprising way. And the Dido Hera did, I think, fine against a swarm and fine against rallies. Like, overall, a solid garrison. Even if they're hitting you with cavalry, like, you can outmuscle them if you've got, like, the better equipment or armaments and actually be fine. I mean, certainly we've seen metas where, like, that was not true, where, like, even if you had a slight stat advantage, you were gonna just absolutely get wrecked by a certain rally against you. And from here, I've got a bunch of garrisons that, like, you might think would be, like, good against a swarm, but I don't know. Maybe I've underrated them. Dido, Zhuge Liang, super tanky, but actually doesn't trade all that great against a swarm, I think. Gorgo and Flavius, I don't know. Maybe we need to test Flavius more with Gorgo, and maybe it does okay. But I don't think that combo was, like, particularly synergistic. Certainly in our testing, it did not do well. And then there's combos, like, we really didn't use them all KVK, like Flavius with Hera, Hera with YSS. We just don't have someone in our kingdom with the gear to make Hera YSS really work. But actually, I think maybe that garrison should be ranked higher. Hera YSS is so good for your ability to just put any troop type in there, but it does require, like, the fully crit leadership gear that a lot of people don't have. So Hera YSS, that's a garrison I would consider bumping up. But at this point, I think if what you want to do is handle a swarm and, like, wreck the swarmers, you'd be better off with the Charles Gorgo anyways, I think. The advantage of the Hera YSS is, again, the fact that you could put whatever troop type you want in there, and you can fill a garrison a lot faster if you're just dumping whatever into the garrison. The Charles Gorgo has the disadvantage of, like, hey, that has to be infantry. I suppose there is one other garrison that maybe needs to be on here, which is, like, Hera and Charles together. That combo probably belongs on here as an anti-swarm, but I suspect that the Charles Gorgo's better. I don't know. I mean, like I said, this is not a finalized list. It's a draft, but I think it's pretty insightful and still, I think, really helpful for people to kind of understand big picture. This is where I think things generally are for garrisoning right now. Just to flip through some reports that I've got from KVK here to round out the vid. Here is when we were losing the pass. We had a Dido Zhuge Liang. They rallied with, okay. Nevsky with Henry flipped over as a cavalry commander. This is a Warriors Unbound KVK. And I mean, they won, right? So a good outcome for them. However, when we actually keep the pass full, it's a slightly different story. Dido Zhuge Liang against a Nevsky with Justinian. And we kind of 2-for-1'd against the rally. It's pretty good. Here's another one. They've got a Henry Nebu. So big anti-swarm rally going on here. 152 to 247. All right. Dude, I actually was in a non-trivial number of these pass reports. Oh, God. Attila Liucha. Everybody thought Attila Liucha was going to be this crazy rally in Warriors Unbound. And, like, Liucha just, it just isn't doing it, man. 183 to 289. GG. And then from here, 77 to 69. Yeah, dude, I feel like Nevsky Justinian is just so good. What else have I been in? What do we have here? Ooh, rally. 194 to 426. Oh my. Well, that's a garrison we're popping. Oh, yeah, no. Remember when I said, like, YSS is just, that ain't it anymore? Like, YSS ain't it, man. Xeno YSS. That's a bit of yikes. And then here's a garrison. So this is a Jan Zizka Hera. And, traded negative against the rally, but positive overall. So if I look at the overall battle data, 167 to 251. So this is why I'm kind of like, Jan Zizka with Hera could actually be fine, especially if you just kind of need to dump whatever into there and need a way to get rid of calves. I think the best way to get rid of calves, I think, is just rallies right now, hands down. Like, you garrison your infantry, you rally your calves, and you can do both with your archers. And you can also rally with infantry, but, like, you're going to kill your infantry in rallies and garrisons, you're going to run out of infantry, which kind of sucks because I'm an infantry rally player right now. I guess I could garrison. I just don't have the best arch armaments on my main account. But like, yeah, as I scroll through this report, like obviously the Hera is not even getting swarmed. Like it's just eating players with AoE, which that's what that does, man. You know, the important thing to do to mitigate this situation is you always rally from a different alliance than where the majority of your players are stationed. Oh God, this report was crazy. Yo, what do we have here? Oh, no. Oh my. Okay, yeah, we're getting wrecked, I guess. A flag, Xeno, Gorgo, yikes. 2 million, 2.5 million dead for us, and 1.6, almost 1.7 for the rally, but hold up, let's look at the summary. The summary may tell a different tale. Oh my God. I feel like I remember this flag. 6.9 to 7.3 for deads. Wow. That is a lot. So this is a heavy swarm situation. This is a crazy swarm situation. My goodness. Yeah, okay. That is pretty crazy. I didn't favorite all the reports, but this was a pretty good one to put into the favorites. So this is the Xeno Gorgo, and it got wrecked by the rally, but absolutely decimated the swarmers to make up for it. Okay, that is actually very interesting to see that result. That is very interesting, but I bet you we're shoving like mixed troops into this garrison. I would bet you, and this really needs to be like full infantry. Yeah, there's like siege in there. What else we got? Cavalry, infantry, siege. Yeah. So this is the issue, is that like people run out of troops, and at some point you're like, put anything in there. And when you're like, just get in the garrison, you're better off having, I think, a combo that doesn't care as much about the troop types. And like Xeno Gorgo, you do really want full infantry for this, ideally. Like the Xeno sort of gets away with it because she does a 30% health boost, right, on the active and some all damage, but I don't think that's really where it's at. I guess the TLDR here is that Gorgo is a good garrison in KVK, and you should not underestimate the value of being able to put mixed troops in there. Of course, if you want to see the testing, where we sort of figured out, hey, wait a minute, Constantine actually could work. In fact, no, this is not a Constantine situation. This is a pass. Gorgo Hera, we rallied it with Nevsky Justinian. All right. I'm sure I've got some more of this, but anyways, check the cards in the end screen. If you want to see that like a Gorgo Constantine testing where we're like, hold up, wait a minute, this is really working. Those two cards are probably going to be pretty eye-opening for you. And we did use Gorgo Constantine, and we found like in a 1v1 situation where they aren't swarming, it did really good. I am a little anxious calling it like the best garrison in the game. And I would almost lean towards saying the best garrison can support the mixed troops. Really, it is that important.